Yes, indeed. Welcome to another rousing rendition of Solid Dudes. I am your host, Chaddukes. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're on the Facebook side of the equation, please do be heading over to the red side on YouTube. Greatly appreciate you. Super chats will be accepted during this program. If you'd like to get your question, comment, or query up on the screen from myself or my esteemed guest, let's not make him wait. Backstage. This man doesn't do well backstage. He likes to be on stage. My buddy, the Reverend Peyton from the Reverend Peyton's Big Damn Band, is my guest all the way from Brown County, Indiana. Hello, Rev. How are you, brother?
How's it going, brother? I'm so happy to be talking to you here on the show. And I've been dying to talk to you about all this happening anyway. I'm so excited to be here.
I am too. And it's, I forgot when we did, have we done 2 episodes of UFOs Are Real, and the United States government has confirmed that it's a very wordy title, but I feel like 2 is what we've put in the coffers.
That's right.
Okay. And Pete's usually with us. I love Pete to death, but Pete had told me one time straight to my face, I don't read any of the news about UFOs, brother. And I'm like, all right, man, no worries. So we'll get him on the next one. Love him. But Rev does. And any day I get to see this man's face is a day that I'm going to enjoy. For those of you that might not be familiar, I don't know where people are going to stumble across this on the internet, Rev. Mm-hmm. And I hate to do this because I almost feel like if you bumped into Jimmy Page, you wouldn't go up to him and say, hey, man, will you play Stairway to Heaven for me? You know what I mean? But I do have this that I wanted to show people that were that maybe aren't familiar with your inner workings or some of your gotta be the only man that has ever played a lick like that and then shot a shotgun simultaneously.
I contain multitudes, brother. What can I say?
One of my favorite videos of all time, and you've got some good ones. The axe guitar, don't take offense. That's still my favorite because when you go on tour and you come here, it's very difficult for you to shoot a firearm live inside of a nightclub.
That's right. I mean, I took the axe with me to Europe. I've been in Europe for 6 weeks. Just got home a couple days ago. And I took the axe with me to Europe, man, and people love that thing over there. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. They lose their mind over it.
It's fantastic. Corey Rita, thank you for the super chat. Super excited for this one. Good to see the Rev and Dukes chop it up. Literally what we were just talking about. So, yeah, I'm excited for this also. I'm far from an expert. I don't think Rev purports himself to be an expert, but we do share a shared passion for, well, it was UFOs before it was very recently UAPs. And Rev, you've had personal experiences. I had, this is fucking crazy timing, brother. I had my first experience with a UAP last Friday night.
Really? Tell us about it.
So this is crazy because we were sitting around talking about fucking the hearing, right? We're out in my bonfire. And everybody on one side of the bonfire said, there's a bunch of UFOs up in the sky. And I said, fuck off. Like, you're gaslighting me. That's not what's going on. They're like, no, there is. And like, people started standing up. And I'm like, I'm not turning around. And if I do, I know what it is. Like, there's a car dealership not far from me, and they have searchlights, right? So every once in a while when they do a big sale or whatever, you know what that looks like, right?
Oh, yeah.
I stand up and I turn around. And right as I turn around, they say, oh, they're disappearing. And I'm like, oh, okay, you guys are jerking my chain. But I turn around, and there's two of them. And they're flying the way everybody describes that they fucking fly. And I've been through this whole journey never once ever having a personal experience. And I second guessed myself for a full week, and I saved it for this conversation with you because I would assume people would think I'm bullshitting. I'm not. And what everyone that was sitting there watching said that there was 20 of them up in the fucking sky, and they just blinked out of existence. Now, that could have been anything, but I got to say, Rev, the timing of it spooked the shit out of me.
Man, let me tell you, you know me, we've talked, I've had a handful of experiences, and they have been in areas, one of which was in an area that was so rural and so far away. It was no lights from a dealership. It was nothing. I watched craft defy the laws of physics for hours. And I was fishing one night, catfishing. You and I, I've been sober for many years. I wasn't imbibing anything.
I was for the record.
But I was sober as a priest on Sunday, and I'm sitting out there catfishing in the middle of the night, no lights, no lanterns, nothing. And I watched these things for hours. All right. That's just one experience. I've had a few. And I'm with some friends, and they were like, wow, that's weird. And I said, no, that's not weird. I said, we're watching craft defy the known laws of physics. And I don't know what it is. At the time, you got to wonder, is it military, right? Is it military? But this was 13 years ago was when I watched these things for hours. This was not like a fleeting moment. We sat out there for hours, and no one knew we were there. We were in a place that now, the word's out a little bit, but at 13 years ago, there was no one there, ever. And we were no lights, no nothing. And there was no reason for anybody to be where we were, And I think that was why we were able to kind of see something that, maybe we weren't supposed to see or something that was rare. People are experiencing these things all the time. I've felt more comfortable coming forward and talking about it recently. And as I travel around, I talk to people, you would be amazed at how many stories I hear. And Chad, brother, I'm going to tell you right now, I wanted to talk about this later, and we can. I have friends who have been in the military who have confirmed to me over the years many of the things they talked about in this hearing. Firsthand knowledge, people that have seen things. I have a friend, I can't talk about it. He shouldn't even been telling me. But I have a friend who saw bodies. All right? Well, no reason to lie to me. Right? And when people when they talk about these hearings, they go, oh, well, how they keep it a secret? They haven't. It's the worst kept secret since Roswell.
Sure.
How many people have come forward and talked about this, right? I mean, it is the worst kept secret since Roswell. Now, what is it exactly? I mean, I think that I have theories, I have beliefs. What is it exactly? We could talk about that when we should. But what I do know is that there is something big going on at that hearing, and I'm sure you feel this way.
Yeah.
We watched a hearing. At that hearing, a congressional hearing, people say there's no evidence. There have been people convicted on death row with less evidence. What they have is evidence. They had testimony from people whose character was beyond reproach. They had video. They had radar. They had photographs. What do people think happens at a hearing, a criminal hearing, when someone stands up and says someone killed someone else and they saw it? You take witness testimony, and you say, okay, well, what can we trust this person? What's their character? They have reason to lie, and there's no reason for these people to lie. So if they have been tricked, if it's a big giant, if there's some kind of conspiracy going on here, I ask you and anyone else, why? It does not make sense.
The only part about it, and of course what Rev's referring to is the reason why this episode it felt like it needed to happen, is there was a House Oversight Subcommittee that was held on UAPs and UFOs. And the people you're talking about, there's David Grush, who is kind of the linchpin for all this. It is a former intelligence official that is a whistleblower. You talked about knowing a military official that talked about this. David Grush claims he interviewed 40 witnesses and that he's spoken to. And this is where we're getting the information. Like
he's an intelligence analyst too. People say, "Oh, what does he know?" Maybe they're lied to him. These people, their whole job is to interview people and to find information so that they can give that information to the government and the powers that be, so they can use that information as they see fit. This guy risked his entire career. He had no reason to come forward to this. There's no. I mean, think about it. No one reads books. People go, "Oh, he's going to get a book deal." No one reads books. How much money is he going to make off a book? You know what I mean? It's ridiculous.
If half of what he is saying about what has happened to his life, Bob Lazar is another one. I'm hearing a lot of the same shit being talked about Grush that people talked about Lazar.
Exactly what they said with Lazar. That poor guy. I hope he gets vindicated. I've been into and following Bob Lazar for years and years and years. His stories never change. People say it has not. He is, he's. For the most part, after he came forward and they destroyed his life, he was quiet for a long time.
Decade. Do you remember how nervous he was when he went on Rogan? I mean, they had to get him drunk. He was having migraines. Like, he was dragged onto that forum.
They've been threatening people, and if you believe Grush, if you believe some of these whistleblowers, they've killed people to keep this a secret.
Well, that's the part that really is, I mean, that's new. And what I thought was also very interesting during that hearing, Rev, is that David Fravor, that's the guy, when I heard him speak, that convinced me. I was a skeptic. I was not like you. I was not a long-time believer. I said, this is bullshit. This is people. And I think a lot of it is the misinformation that is disseminated out there. And I want to talk about that. It is happening. If you go to Twitter or X right now, for the past week, UFO X has been trending. And if you click on that, there is a fucking misinformation campaign going on that is staggering, where there's this Twitter account that is tweeting out obviously fake UAPs just constantly. It's the entire trend. And you click on it, and if you're just casually looking at it, Rev, you're like, what's this shit? Like, my dad looks at it, son, a UFO, a government. And I'm like, that's his level of involvement. If you click on this, you're like, well, this is all bullshit. It's like, is this what people are talking about? This is clearly fake. Exactly. I don't know if that's a government official doing that or it's just people looking for attention, but the misinformation is only doubled now that everyone has social media and we've all become reporters.
The misinformation has been coming for years, and here's why. Right? Here's why. It's twofold. All right. Let's say, people will take like someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I have respect for, has made jokes of this, and it frustrates me. He says, "Oh, he thinks you can't travel faster than the speed of light. Einstein's relativity." Well, we know that's true, right? But there are several theories in physics that could explain the traveling across great distances faster than the speed of light.
Right.
One of which is wormholes. If you can harness enough energy and create wormholes, you could travel through them. One of which is warp drive, which sounds like a Star Trek term, but it's actually a real, physics concept that has been, now theorized and kind of worked through and proven that warp drive is possible, which basically means if you go from A to B at the speed of light, you can't do that. You can't go from A to B at the speed of light. But in physics, you can make A go to B. You can bend space-time. Now, these concepts are over most people's heads.
Well, they're beyond us.
And they're beyond us. But we do know in theory it's possible. Now, here's the big rub, okay? And think about this. In order to create a warp drive, in theory, it requires more energy than all of the energy that we create on Earth in any day. So imagine being able to harness that kind of power. All right, that's dangerous. So when they created the nuclear bomb, there was talk that maybe they shouldn't have even done this, right? And the only reason that it was really pursued is because other countries were doing it at the same time, right? So to a certain extent, you have to kind of understand if these people had the concept of this kind of power, why they would want it to be so secret that it would be beyond, above top secret, compartmentalized more than the atomic bomb was. Because if this, if this concept, if being able to harness this kind of power were to be used as a weapon, or if, we could all become subservient to who knows. I mean,
China or Russia or
exactly,
whomever,
which is most likely, right? So you kind of have to understand that. And then also, there's the second part. We have, as a nation, we have given over too much of our power from our military to these private contractors.
Sure.
People have been sounding the alarm since Eisenhower over this, right? So if you hand this over to private contractors, there's no public interest, right? It's all comes down to these people want to have it. They've been trying to reverse engineer it. They want to use it, for money, for power, you name it. It goes on and on and on. So it's easy to see why people would kill to protect it, either for national security or just financially.
I tell you what frustrates me about it is you had members of Congress this week calling this like why are we wasting our time and races on this? This is bullshit. And I'm like, you want to start splitting hairs about wasting resources of American taxpayers? You talk about farming out the military.
Yeah.
How about farming out space travel as a whole? If Elon Musk wasn't doing what he's doing,
it's pathetic.
It's fucking unbelievable.
It's unbelievable what we've done. We've allowed a private company to come in and take over our space program. A once very powerful and actually innovative space program. So much stuff has come from NASA, from Velcro to, you name it. There's so many things that have come from NASA and the money that we spent on NASA. People think it's a waste of time to go and study space, but how can it be a waste of time to study science and space when we have, the possibilities are endless? We've handed over to a private company. Think about what's going on with Starlink. They're putting satellites in there. We have to go to Starlink to run Wi-Fi in a military battlefield. We have to go to a private company and say, please let us use your Wi-Fi. That's insane.
Well, the part of it, too, that's also insane is that now because of that, everything is completely politicized. And what I would say, look, we're going to get to, there's a lot to get to here. And part of it is we now know, George Knapp, the letter that he just penned to Congress, is that Russia is actively engaging UAPs, sending out scrambling fighters. They've fired upon them. This happened in Mexico. It's not just an American problem. And I think that if you want to talk about something that could, we've never been more segmented and stratified and all that in a society that we are currently. What's the one thing that's unifying? You see AOC and Republicans all fucking sitting together in the same room. It's this. That's why it's definitely worth the conversation. I wanted to start with this, Rev.
Okay.
Before we get to everything, Largemouth Ass, thank you so much for by the way, I have the best super chatters. Thank you so much, Largemouth Ass, for the $20 super chat. Very, very kind. We are not alone. Well, and I don't know, it's no longer X-Files fucking little green men shit either. Like, Alex Jones has been screaming about interdimensional beings for all, the entire time he's been screaming into the internet. It could be any of this stuff. I think, though, the bullshit nonsense of, we're just going to pretend that nothing is happening. At this point, you're in the minority. You have to be an ignoramus if you want to put those type of blinders
There's
on.
so much disinformation, it's hard to cut through it, right? There's so much, and people they take something, they take a little kernel of information, and then they try to sort of take a hammer and they hammer their worldview or their beliefs or some weird theory they have into it, right? Well, I say cut all that. Get rid of all that. Let's just look at what we know. We know that there are videos and pictures released by our government, our military, and says that they don't know what they are, right?
Well, we have them
confirmed.
Yes.
We have them on radar. Now, a lot of people don't know what that means. On radar means that it's a hard object. It can't be a hologram on radar. Even wood and some other items don't show up on radar very well. Metal or metallic, metallic-like things show up on radar. So we have essentially things flying that were on radar, metal. So these are metal objects defying the known laws of physics.
And it's also,
we know that.
It's further than that. The objects have jammed our radar, which is defined as an act of war. So it goes even further than just us tracking them. They've decided, I'm not going to show you everything that I can do. And that's up to my discretion. And I want to go, I got the clip here. Let's play this. We're all fired up. Lubomir, Thank you for the $10 super chat. Greatly appreciate you.
Yeah, Lubomir.
Lubomir is, of course. Chuck Schumer has already proposed non-human intelligence bill. Why the COVID shutdown could have been a dry run for this. They're going to pass legislation that strips us of even more rights. Lubomir, you might be right, but that's not what we're here to describe and discuss here today.
It's too bipartisan, man.
One, you got to take it serious. Yeah. We have a tendency, or
Let
it'll
me
go
set
away.
this up.
Go
so
away.
this is Fravor, who is a Navy pilot. And if you want to talk about, I mean this as a compliment, Rev, he's a fucking square. I mean, there's not one hint of I'm looking for intelligence, and his story hasn't changed one iota. And also, he has said, I didn't want to do this. He said at the hearing, I was dragged out in front of everybody. Then Rogan hears about it. Then Jeremy Corbell brings him on to Rogan because he was in that documentary. If you think this guy's looking for attention, I don't think you've met a lot of guys like him, and I have. He reminds me of Dan Creasy. All right. This is from 2 years ago when he was on with Rogan.
One, you got to take it serious. Yeah. We have a tendency, if we don't know what it is, if we just ignore it, it'll go away. You know, and I joke, you know, there was an incident it's probably not too far off the same time frame, where I think it was like the Constellation was doing her workups before she got decommissioned, and an a Soviet Oscar-class submarine surfaced behind her, right? And then it's like, you know, go to battle stations, World War III. How did this foreign submarine get in our area and has been monitoring our workups?
And we know what a submarine is, and we know what its capabilities are, and we can fight a submarine. We can't do any of that with the Tic Tac. So taking it seriously is the first thing he said, and it's like, yes, that is what that hearing was, Rev. It is finally starting to agree we have to take this seriously. And I think the analogy is a perfect one.
A big deal.
Right.
I said, but now we go out and we have these things that are coming at will, and there's nothing we can do about it. We don't know what they are. We have confirmed sighting by 2 aircrew, 4 of us, 2 planes.
More now, by the way. More now since this.
Yeah.
That said, look, this is not an airplane. This is not a weather balloon. This is not a blip. It has performance well beyond, you know, and the airplanes that we were flying at the time were literally brand new Super Hornets right out of the Boeing factory. I mean, these were brand new, first Block 2 series that came out. And you go, why wasn't something done? You know, it's like, we don't know what it is. I think it's good now, you know.
I mean, you get the gist. The analogy, though, the part that I wanted to get across, Rev, was the story he tells of the submarine surfacing behind you and everybody goes nuts. Think about how much more dangerous what we're talking about is potentially. Like, we don't know what the intent is. But a submarine, I've seen a submarine. Like, we know speed-wise what it can do, how many, you know, fathoms down it can go, usually what the payload probably is as far as its weapons armament. We don't have any of that for the Tic Tacs. And that's why it needs to, the first thing he said is we have to take this seriously. That's a military man thinking like one should.
And now we know they're blocking the paths of these of our fighter jets. They can do circles around them. They toy with them, or they're looking at them, or we don't even know. We don't know. You know, if someone knows in our government what this is and what they're doing, they haven't said. The only thing that we do know is it's real. We know that.
Yeah, and I think that the age-old argument of, well, you know, we don't want to give up that information because then maybe our enemies could exploit it. Like, I understand that, but it's only going to go so far, especially this part drives me fucking insane. We had this, and I wasn't the only person to make this point, but I remember making this point the second after I watched this video on Twitter. We have this video of a Russian plane colliding with one of our drones.
A report with footage released from the Pentagon Thursday involving Russia's encounter and later collision with an American drone. The video shows a Russian fighter jet intercepting and then clipping the drone. The unmanned.
Look at that. How clear is that photo? We know exactly what it is. We can see the exhaust. I mean, we could see it pull up and breaking in the air.
The U.S. aircraft crashed into the Black Sea Tuesday. Officials say the drone went down in waters southwest of Crimea. It's the first known direct contact between the Russian and American militaries since the war in Ukraine began last February. Ed O'Keefe has more.
The footage shows Russian jets making 2 passes from behind the drone, dousing it in a cloudy stream of fuel before one clips its propeller. Separate still images show what the drone's propeller looked like before and after.
Look at that
the
detail.
Damage forcing a
you're telling me we've got drones in the air, we've got planes in the air, we have aircraft carriers, we have satellites. Because one of the things I always hear, Rev, is why is there only grainy footage? Why do I only see some tiny little white speck with a reticule on it? Because that's all we're allowed to see.
That's right. Yeah, that's what people don't understand. Part of our satellite imagery is we don't want people to know how detailed our drones and our satellites can see. That's one of the reasons why so much of that is top secret, is because we don't want our adversaries to know how detailed it is. So when we get images from satellites, from drones, things like that, they are always lower resolution than what they really are. And they will only declassify lower res stuff. And that's not some conspiracy thing. You can look that up across the board. So when they give us video or images, it is not the full resolution video and images. They do not want our adversaries to know how well we can see.
And that's fine. There's a happy medium. I mean, we saw why are we allowed to see a jet running into a drone, but we're not allowed to see what a UAP looks like? And also, by the way, maybe it does look man-made. Maybe we see it and there's a pilot with a helmet. You're like, okay, all right, then you're right. There are no aliens. I think that once shit like you can only control a message so much, Rev, and everyone's got a camera. Like everyone has become a photojournalist. And I think now it's like, look, man, you can't, we're stupid and we're easily led like sheep and we're scared a lot of the times. But this is now too much information even for casual people to turn a blind eye to when that video of that drone getting, and maybe they didn't even really think about that before that footage was released.
I think that one of the big reasons why we're hearing so much about this and why this is actually brought up to the forefront is because phones have changed. You know, people always say, well, how come there's not more videos, these things? Well, when you're watching something at night, go back even 3 years ago, you couldn't take a video of an airplane at night. You can barely see the moon at night. But the cell phones are now can take videos at night. They do really well with it. It's incredible. The cell phone takes a better picture at night than most high-end cameras do now. I mean, it's nuts. So there's too much real video out now. It would be impossible to go through and discredit all of it, and I think that's kind of what we're dealing with, and I think that's why the military, because there were certain people that started coming forward. There's tons of private cell phone video. There's just too much. There's too much. I think that's what's driving it. You know, there's all these rumors that maybe there's some kind of deadline or this, that, and the other. And, who knows? Maybe there is. I mean, that's all conjecture. But what we do know is that there are every single day more and more people come forward with videos that cannot be explained. Every single day now, people, normal people, regular people, not weirdos, not strange people, not people that have mental illness, normal people with backgrounds in military, police, academics, you name it, are coming forward with sightings and videos. And
one of the things they talked about in that hearing is coming up with a format, not only for military officials and pilots and people that are out on these aircraft carriers are looking up at the night sky where all these events are taking place. They need a system and they need to be recognized and it needs to be looked into. But another thing they talked about is just what you said, Rev, the private sector, like people that are just out like I was at my fucking bonfire. It's like there needs to be a system there because there is a lot of mental illness surrounding this topic. There's a lot of schizophrenia. There's a lot of weirdos. And then you double on top of that. We know the government is releasing misinformation. We know that we're not getting one of the things that Lazar talked about. You remember this? He's like, I think I saw a body, but I can't swear to it. And it may have been bullshit. They may have just been testing me to see what I was going to see. You said something at the very beginning of the show where you said, I was looking at these things for many minutes. I don't know if it's aliens. I don't know if it's military. Well, one of the things Lazar talked about was taking his friends out to the base. I think it was S4 that he said. And it was the military flying the fucking thing around, like trying to get it to work. I think he actually said he had a tape of it. That's another thing that could be taking place. Like if you were to go back to the 40s or whenever people started seeing UFOs on a regular basis, right after when the Fat Man and Little Boy were dropped. So we probably had something in custody for decades upon decades upon decades. So maybe there is more mastery over it than we even think by the powers that be that have this information. I'm not sure.
Well, it's I mean, if we believe Bob Lazar, then yes, and I think that what I saw when I watched for hours, I don't believe that it was aliens operating it, because it looked like someone playing with it.
Okay.
Seeing what it could do. And I think that's what it was. I think it was some kind of military. Down where I'm at in southern Indiana, there's a lot of military bases. Crane is the largest weapons cache on planet Earth, and it's very close to us, and it's very rural. I have military vehicles that fly over my house every day. So I always assume anything weird I see is military because of that. And I still believe that what I saw was probably operated by our military or someone associated with it. But I do not believe that they were. They moved exactly like Bob Lazar and Grush and these other people that come forward, exactly like they say.
And we've seen a video of it ourselves. I mean, not in person. We were there. Josh Kim, 49 super chat. Thank you, brother. Down here in Virginia Beach, many fighter pilots said they see stuff they can't explain with them over the ocean. Yeah, you're right about that, and that's why it wasn't just this David Grush guy. That it was Fravor was there. And Ryan Graves was there, who was a former Navy pilot, and he basically was one of those guys. It was in North Carolina, I believe, saying that it was just constantly happening. And that I don't want to shit on people that aren't in the military that are talking about this, because they should. But if you're a skeptic, I don't know why you'd be a skeptic. Like, that doesn't. Why would you be skeptical of anything? Why wouldn't you just process the information and come draw your own conclusion? If you go into an argument being skeptical of something, I think you're not doing yourself any favors. But you have to, the rigors of becoming a pilot for the fucking Navy. I mean, the mental gymnastics you have to go through,
the eyesight you have to have. These people, like, that's something that's. I'm glad you brought this up, because when people talk about pilots, they go, well, maybe they didn't know. It's not like you being in a commercial jet looking out the window going, what is that? Right. These people have years of training to identify what they see in the sky. They know, they can tell from miles away by the shape and movement what kind of plane they're dealing with. They have to, because they have to engage. So that when they say they see something they don't know, it's not like, oh, I didn't know what it was. They come with years of knowledge, of education, of experience.
The part about it, too, that really resonated with me, and if you're in the chat and you have a question, comment, or query, you don't have to super chat it. These guys are being very generous, but a couple bucks will get it done. We'll get it up on the screen. We'll answer your question. Here's the part of it that really resonated with me. And again, I felt like each one of these three main characters that were in this this House Oversight Subcommittee that we all watched. You watched the whole thing, right? I was fucking riveted by it.
Yeah.
Graves, his kind of angle was, you're sending, and he wasn't just talking about the military, Rev. He was talking about commercial pilots also. Mm-hmm. You are sending pilots. You know that these things are out there, and you are sending them out there unprepared to deal with them and what they're capable of. And that is gross fucking negligence. When you just talk about Fravor and his flight team getting launched from the Nimitz, they knew those fucking things were out there. They were sending him to look at them. Mm-hmm. And he was unarmed. He didn't have any active missiles on his plane. It's like, how can we continue to do that? Like, I almost feel like there's a massive lawsuit somewhere there if we find out that the government has this information and we continue to send pilots out there with no ability to deal with them.
Well, I mean, that's one of the big issues too, I think, is the Pentagon. They're not in the business of not being able to fight, you know?
Yeah.
So if they admit that there is a possible threat, or at least there's something out there that they can do nothing about, that kind of they have to admit that in effect that they have a major hole in our defenses. And I think that's part of it too, man. I mean, it's just it's ego, it's financial, it goes on and on and on. You can kind of see, you can understand, because also too, what if it is China or Russia? Okay, let's just say maybe it is. Well, then they have to admit that China or Russia has something that is so far beyond us we can't even tell you what it is. Now, I can tell you, this is what I believe, and I think that a sort of educated guess. If it was our military and we had it and we really could use it and create it, and then we would parade it around.
I agree, but it's not Russia, because Russia is more active in going after these things than we are. We'll get to that in just a couple of minutes here.
And they'd parade it around. Why wouldn't they? Their hypersonic missiles, they parade around. Every advance they make, they literally make a parade to try to show, oh, look how cool we are. That they make a parade about it. We would put out a press release. We wouldn't do a parade. We would let the whole world know that we had these things that could control them. Now, if we have a couple of craft we've been trying to reverse engineer and we don't want someone else to figure it out before we do, then we can't parade that around, and we can't use that militarily because it's too important of an asset. If we were to accidentally crash it, or it were to be shot down, or just fail, some kind of failure over enemy territory, then we lose that. It's too important, so we can't do that, right?
The problem that I have though, Rev, is what you were talking about. Then the government would have to come out and say, hey, we fucked that up, or hey, we were wrong. Is there a long list of examples that you or I could give where they do that? Because I don't have them.
No, and they never admit when they're wrong.
No,
especially the military. And our military is so compartmentalized, man. People don't realize this. I don't think they understand. The Navy only speaks to the Air Force, to the Army. They only speak to them almost when they have to, right? And then if you really want to compartmentalize it, I mean, everyone's talking about this movie Oppenheimer and the atomic bomb. There were six figures. I forget the actual number. 100,000, 200,000. 300,000 people that worked on that atomic bomb in different ways, right? Factories all across. It took a lot of people to create those bombs. None of them knew what the hell they were doing.
Right.
None of them. There was only 5 or 6 people that knew what was really going on.
Well, I hate to keep going back to Lazara, but that's what he was talking about, is that they brought a shitload of people in. They didn't put them in the same rooms. They had different shifts. And, if you're trying to have smart people work on something but not let them know what exactly it is they're doing, that's a difficult shell game to maintain. TJ Evans, $20 super chat. Thank you so much, brother. Love this show. So do I, TJ. Been trying to get this, man. I can't stop him from playing fucking music in front of 200,000 motherfuckers. It's a very difficult thing. Some of those pictures, Rev, from your European tour are insane.
Yeah, it was some big shows, man. It was.
What
really
is it
good.
like in front of that many goddamn people when you're playing music? Because it's different than anything else, I imagine, playing music. That's a pretty emotional thing.
Yeah, you know what's strange about the energy of live music is that it's you somehow, and I mean, it gets a little bit maybe out there, but it's you can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel the people, right? You feel the energy. That's why when you come to a live concert and you see a great show, you leave more energized than you listen to a great record. You literally feel it. You can feel the energy from all of those people, and it's this giant communal thing that happens, and it reaches like this vibrational crescendo, and I mean it you literally feel it, and you can feel it long after the show's over. You're like energized.
I want to show people this. This isn't even the most impressive picture that I saw from when you guys were out there, but I mean that's so fucking cool. I know it has nothing to do with UFOs.
Shows. We had some big shows. It was pretty
How
cool.
great. Where is that, by the way?
That one there is in a place in the Netherlands that I cannot pronounce, but it's not too far from Amsterdam.
Okay. Netherlands is beautiful, man. I've
never
been, but every picture I see from there is
dude, the Netherlands is like the most beautiful, clean place. Everyone just kind of like, they ride bikes everywhere and they don't worry about anything, and they eat like waffles and French fries all day, and they just kind of hang out. And
you're speaking my language now.
They get 3 months, like it's like 3 months off work, and nobody has to worry about anything. It's unbelievable.
This is fucking. We'll get back to it. Trust me. I'm sorry. I remembered this and I went down the rabbit hole, and it's just kind of the way that it goes. But when you talk about there are people that are okay with speaking in front of large groups, and then there's the Rev. How many people is that?
Man, that's a lot. That I don't know. It was that one's in Belgium. Yeah, it's called it's called Shockfest in Belgium. We've played that one 3 times. That's our 3rd time there, and it's a big one, man. It's cool, and you can't see around that tent. There was people even outside that. It's a big tent. Like it's not. It was one of the biggest tents I've ever been in. It was a huge, giant circus tent.
That's so awesome, man. Well, I'm very happy for you about that, and I'm very happy that you're here. That's why it was difficult to run you down, because you're in front of all those goddamn people. So not 67 of my losers. Let's see. No, I didn't mean that, by the way, in the chat. I don't know why that was mean for no reason. Matthew Jameson, with the acknowledgement, how do we now reconcile sightings like the Phoenix Lights? Well, I think what you can immediately start to do is all of these swamp gas and low-hanging weather balloons, you can crumble that shit up and throw it out immediately. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. And by the way, Matthew, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you.
What it means is, at the very least, there is a ton of stuff that was discredited and people's lives were ruined and they were embarrassed over sightings, videos, testimony that we now have to wonder how much of it was 100% true.
Yep.
That's what we have to do. We have to go back, and there's a ton of people that have experienced things, and we have to acknowledge that it is 100% true. One person that I wish that we'd heard from at the hearing that I think we'll hear from more is Dr. Gary Nolan.
Okay.
And I'm sure you've been following some of the things he said. He's a Stanford professor. He is highly regarded, and he has been coming forward saying that he's been working with the CIA to deal with, essentially injuries from contact with UAPs. Yeah,
well, he's the guy that said 100% the aliens have already arrived. Mm-hmm. Like, he believes that they're here.
He is a Stanford professor whose entire, when you're a professor, especially a medical professor in the medical field, and he's got patents, he's got all kinds of things. If you blow that up, if you're regarded as some kind of crackpot, all that goes away, right? So why would he come forward if he didn't 100% have the information to back it up?
Well, Grush is going through a little bit of that now. I mean, you have people trying to take a fuck. I mean, he's talking about potentially violent crime, or at least he didn't deny it in his testimony, but you don't have to kill that dude to kill his reputation or kill his credibility or dig up enough dirt. And I really think that's another, people believe you see someone on TV or they're getting a lot of Instagram hits, that means they're living a great life and making a bunch of money. No, it fucking doesn't. And if you have the United States government and the fact they control, I would say, a bulk of the media weaponized against you and what you're saying, you're not going to live a comfortable life.
Even let's face it, man. You know, people talk about the government. This may not even be the government anymore. That's the problem. Yeah. If it was the Pentagon, we could come in and they could, we'll just deal with it. We'll bring this out and prate it out. The government hasn't been involved in this for maybe 75 years. You know, this is Lockheed Martin, Boeing. We have these giant contractors, okay? And people look this up. This is not this is no conspiracy theory. Most of these are kind of owned by the same people. All right, BlackRock, Vanguard, these companies own the same things. They own the oil companies. They own our food. They own everything.
They've changed. BlackRock has completely changed the entertainment industry by themselves.
They own everything. Yeah. So think about this. Let's say you had a giant financial interest in keeping a secret. Well, you keep it a secret because human beings are terrible in that way. Right? I mean, how many people would just be like, well, I have the chance to be a multi-trillionaire, or I can give this up and have, free energy for everybody. I don't know. Maybe I'll just wait till the next guy.
Well, that's why
they can't handle it anyway. You do a bunch of stuff to tell yourself that what you're doing is the right thing.
People don't like some of Elon Musk's views. I'm like, well, who else is putting free internet up for fucking people in war-torn countries to be able to use Starlink? Like, who else is doing the shit that he's doing right now?
Well, and it should be our military. We should be sending NASA up with satellites for internet, not a private company. And that's the problem. Is we have all of these things that are compartmentalized in private companies that have top secret clearance. Think about that. We have Lockheed Martin, Lockheed Skunk Works. These people have higher clearance than most of our military does, and we have no control. We've learned, and I think that's part of the reason why it's so bipartisan.
Yeah, I would agree.
You've got Matt Gaetz sitting next to AOC, right? And they're both pissed about this. I have friends that went, "Oh, it's a distraction." It's like, what's it a distraction for? They said Hunter Biden, and I said, "Well,
fine, distract me." Fucking, if we can get to the bottom of this, I will be distracted. I can do two things at once, by the way.
My friends on the right are like, it's distraction for Hunter Biden. And then my friends on the right are like, it's a distraction for Trump. Like, it drives me so insane. It drives me so insane.
Let's say that it is. I'm smart enough to be able to follow a bag of cocaine in the fucking White House and also have people sit down and say, hey, we're sending our fighter pilots up against something they are completely outclassed. It's setting a flyweight in against Brock Lesnar is what we're doing right now. Rob Blackburn with the $19.99 super chat. Thank you, bro.
Yes, people in other countries have been speaking up. Well, let's do a couple. All right, let's just do a couple right off the top of my head that are huge. All right, the former defense minister of Canada, is it Robert Hellyer? Is that right? Did I get that name right?
I don't know.
Let me.
I don't want to give you bad information. Look it
Yeah,
up.
hang on a second. Yeah,
well, hold
just
on.
real quick.
While you're looking that up, can I at least put this up, Rev? Because I've been trying to get to this the entire time, but we're just too fired up.
Okay.
If you want to talk about other countries addressing this, it's easy to start with Russia, because at the very beginning of this, I think we talked about it here. I told you guys about George Knapp filing this letter and sending it in to Congress. And this basically is a report that the Russian military, I'll just read this. The Russian military and their government are not only researching UAPs, but also encountering them. According to this letter by George Knapp, they entered it into congressional record. It claims that 45 different occasions the Russian military sent fighters and jets to try to chase UAPs and shoot them down. Now, Knapp is credible. I don't know if everybody in here is as fucking well-versed in what he did. I read Skinwalker Ranch. I've listened to all of his stuff. I mean, he's been reporting on this before anybody else in this country. But
That's right.
They're not even just talking about investigating, that they launched, Russia has launched fighters and has fired upon UAPs. And if you're looking at this and say, Dukes, that's a text document, I just did copy and paste because there was pop-up fucking ads all over the place. That's the only reason why I did that. So if the question from Rob Blackburn is, are they fucking, or other governments looking into this? Oh, yeah. And a greater clip and a greater veracity, tenacity, what's the word? Tenacity that the United States government at least has admitted that they have been.
Well, so I looked it up. It's Paul, not Robert. So Paul Hellyer, former defense minister of Canada, before he died, he came forward and said that all of this is real. And he is someone look up his Wikipedia. Look up who he was and what he was. Engineer, politician, writer, commentary, defense minister of Canada. What about the book that was written by the former head of national security of Israel? He came out and said it's all real. He said it's all real. Why would these people do that? Though they're going to write a book on their deathbed? I looked it up. They didn't sell copies of the book. Not a ton. He didn't make enough money to stain his entire reputation. The guy who is essentially retired and from a government job where they're getting a government pension. You know, it's ridiculous. And those are just two. It goes on and on. Like the amount of people that have been coming forward and saying this from other countries is staggering. People always go, oh, how come this only happens in the United States? Well, I can tell you this much. It's not true. And let's say there's a crash in the far reaches of the planet. Look up where we have military bases. We can beat everybody there. So if there's something to retrieve, if there's something to get, if there's something to look at, we can beat everybody there. Nobody can beat us there unless it was just they got lucky. We can send a craft in all over the world faster than most people can send it to their own country. That's the reality. So if there's something that happens and we want to have it, we can do it.
You got to go watch. The name of the movie is Moment of Contact. The guy that actually it's based on was just on Rogan. It's about it's fucking Area 51 and it's in Brazil, and they chronicle. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this, Rev. You owe it to yourself. Not only was there an alien, people were getting in contact with it and getting ill. It was speaking with people telepathically. They got a whole classroom full of kids that went running, screaming inside. They interview all these kids back in the 90s. The last thing,
and they all say the same thing.
They all say the same shit. And the fucking there's a story about the Mexican Air Force that they fired on a UAP. Like, it's not. You got to look like the shit doesn't jump out at you, but it's not bullshit. It's not misinformation. This stuff is happening all over the place.
That's what's so maddening. And I think for people that have been following this their whole life, I've been following this my whole life. I've been following this my whole life, and we've talked about it on previous, when we did the last UFO podcast, that I had experiences when I was very young, and so for whatever reason, I have been following this my entire life. I love physics. I love astronomy. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with space and space travel. And I went to space camp when I was a kid. I mean, I've been obsessed with space, and I'm not a kook. I mean, I'm maybe I am, but not in this way. Not in this way. Like I'm not. It's not about like, it's like my religion. All I know is for a long time people have been coming forward. And here's something else too. This is something that has bothered me my entire life. Why is it that whenever you hear anybody talk about it, they always describe the aliens the same way?
Well, I mean, but
isn't that interesting too?
It
They
is.
always describe them the exact same way.
The craft are not described the same way.
That's right. There's different craft, but
I mean, the square inside the orb that we heard about in the testimony, that felt pretty new.
Yeah,
and then there's
weird.
the giant football field-sized fucking triangular jobbers.
Yeah.
And there's the Tic Tacs, and
but there's so many, and there are rumors and conjecture of different species that we're in contact with. But the small grays that were also that's in all over popular culture. Every time you ask, if you say, "Hey, what's an alien look like?" Have a little kid draw an alien. They all draw them the exact same.
Do you think? All right, now, do you think those are creatures, or do you think those are androids? Those are like avatars that they're sending out.
Man, I mean, there's rumor they're like biological androids.
Yeah,
who knows? I mean,
if we continue to evolve, we're becoming dumpier and fucking less muscular, and the brain is more important. I mean, that's what we would. They don't even have to be aliens. They can be us from.
Well, I mean, and
big head, no genitals. We don't reproduce the same way.
Exactly. And think about it like this. Let's go back to let's say we're going to look at it like Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? And we're going to say,
he's a skeptic.
He's a skeptic. Space travel's not possible. You can't go fast enough. Well, what would we do? We could send out drones to do this work for us, and we could send them out, and eventually they could piggyback information back. Well, what if we could create biological drones? That's what we do.
Oh, we're getting there already, bro.
We can grow human organs off the back of a mouse.
Yeah,
we are close, man, to being able to completely. It's getting into a dystopian situation where we could be growing all kinds of human parts on the back of animals and use them for God knows what.
Yeah, but if your liver gave out and they could grow you the liver on the back of a rat, you're gonna live in that dystopian.
You'd be great. You'd be happy with it. Well, and let's face it. This is something else too that sometimes you talk about numbers with people and they don't quite. It's hard to grasp.
Yes.
When you talk about a million seconds, it's 11 days. A billion seconds is 32 years. All right. So we know that the universe is theorized to be at least 13.5 billion years old. There's been new information that we think it might be twice as old as that.
Yeah,
Let's say it's 13.5 billion.
That just happened.
So 13.5 billion years. We have been technologically, like flying and having, essentially an industrialized world just for about 100 years.
Right.
We've had the computer information situation for like 25 years.
But think about how quickly we went from Wilbur and Orville Wright to I can pay $150 and fly to your house.
Fast. Now imagine if a species somewhere had just 50,000 years on it.
No shit. Did you hear when Elon Musk came out and he said when he was talking about AI and how we're all going to be jacked in? He goes, "Go back and look at Pong." Okay, Pong was 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. And now turn on your PlayStation 5 and look at how gorgeous and immersive these games are. Yeah. In 40 years, I doubt I'll be around, but like, what's that going to look like? You're not going to immerse yourself in reality. That's going to become your reality.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? I mean, every single thing that was in a Radio Shack in 1998 is in your pocket in your phone now. Every single device.
Yeah. Think about if you wanted to have a tape recorder and a phone and a camera and a wallet. I left my wallet at home the other day, Rev. I didn't even realize it till I got home because I'm just.
It happens to me all the time. Yeah, my phone, it's everything. My phone's how I tune. It's got a guitar tuner. It's got, it's everything. It does everything. It's unbelievable.
Matthew Steinball with the $10 super chat. Thank you so very, very much for the support. He says, "Preach it, fellow super chats. Keep the station going." So I do appreciate that, Rev. We don't have unlimited time, so I wanted to get to this before we run out of it. And this is something that I sent you. This is a guy named Dan Warren, who is a heavy in the UFO community, and he noticed something in this hearing that we've been talking about that I didn't pick up on, but certainly is something that you and I have discussed, and I think we've discussed it on previous episodes, specifically with what David Fravor said when he saw the Tic Tac and it looked like the water was being disrupted because there was something underneath the water. Check this out.
Notice the overwhelming undercurrent of the UFO hearing? I haven't heard anyone else talk about this, so let's dive into it. Let's start by checking out these clips and see if you can notice a pattern.
I did not, by the way.
Other veterans are also coming forward to us regarding UAP encounters in our airspace and oceans.
Not just military, but also commercial aviation, because there's a lot of that going on, especially if you talk to anyone that flies from here to Hawaii. Over the Pacific, they see odd lights.
Sometimes these reports are reoccurring, with numerous recent sightings north of Hawaii and in the North Atlantic.
They were out on a test mission that day over the Gulf of Mexico.
During a training mission in warning area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach,
All four of us, because we were in F-18Fs, so we had pilots and Wizzo in the back seat, looked down a small, saw a white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water.
Do you believe that you witnessed an additional object under the water in relation to your encounter?
I will say we did not see an object. There was something there to cause the whitewater, and when we turned around, it was gone, so there was something there that obviously moved.
a large group of Boeing contractors were operating near one of the launch facilities at Vandenberg Air Force Base when they observed a very large 100-yard sided red square approach the base from the ocean.
100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Rev, I think if I saw like a 100-yard UAP in the air, it scared the shit out of me. I don't know why, but the idea of looking down like off a platform and seeing it in the water is infinitely more terrifying to me.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Well, the ocean's lonely.
I think that you're right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is.
Identified these as taking place on the East Coast. Is it just on the East Coast where these encounters have been reported?
No. Since the events initially occurred, I've learned that the objects have been detected essentially where all operations, Navy operations are being conducted across the world.
Kinda sounds like the connection between UAP sightings and our oceans was on full display during the hearing, doesn't it? And if you think about it, the possibility that UAPs may originate from our oceans does align with the recent shift away from the term extraterrestrial in favor of non-human intelligence.
Shit.
And did you notice this guy sitting in the front row? That's retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, and he holds the record for the longest tenured acting administrator of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. And he's leading the charge, along with a little bit of help from Chris Mellon, to spearhead the global effort to put science before stigma to better understand UUPs, unidentified undersea phenomenon.
Yeah.
And he's doing this by working with the White House-led Ocean Policy Committee, the Naval Study Board, and the United Nations, in an attempt to close the domain awareness gap that exists within our oceans. Now, for the fun part. Keep all of this in mind and go back and watch The Abyss.
Shit.
Did you know?
This is a lot of fun, but I tell you what, man, science fiction is usually ahead of the curve when it comes to science.
Well, so if you can dream it, you know, I mean, that's it. If you can dream it, it's possible, right? I mean, we know that infinite things are possible because the universe is infinite. So, but as far as oceans, this is what I'd say. It's twofold, right? One, our planet is way more ocean than land. People have no idea just how much more.
Dude.
So that you can take a globe that's actually like to scale. Most globes aren't to scale. They make the land look bigger so it's easier to see it. But if you take a globe that's to scale, you can turn it toward the Pacific where you can't even see land. You can look at a complete blue orb. There's not even land there, right? So that's the one thing I want to point out. The second thing is, if you were coming from somewhere else and you wanted to hide from us or anything else, the oceans would be a great way to do it because we are clueless.
You have an endless resource.
And if you were coming here, the what we have more than any other place that's close to here are those oceans. And whatever the hell's down there, we only are scratching the surface of what it is. We've been down to the bottom, but we've barely. I mean, think about this: a giant jet, can crash in the ocean, and we can never find it. The Malaysian plane, they only kind of assume what happened because parts started showing up on beaches. Right. We never found it. A plane can crash in the ocean, and we don't find it. We cannot do anything about it. And all of our technology. Can't find a plane, an entire jet full of people. We can't find it.
And we know these are transmedium craft because it's on video fucking going from, I mean, what Fravor was talking about is going from space to the air to the water and then back. And if it has a gravity drive, you're not going to be affected by the pressure because you can generate a force field. That's right. I know this sounds fucking crazy, but if that technology exists, they wouldn't be affected by the ocean. The part of it, though, Rev, that really sticks in my fucking craw is that I don't want to tell Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all these guys how to spend their fucking money. But I've been saying this since I've been on the radio, or when I was on the radio. I've been saying it my whole life. why don't people take the interest? That's why I'm glad James Cameron is constantly screaming about. I don't like a lot of what James Cameron says, but he's constantly wanting to explore oceans and advanced submarines and submersibles. It's because you can kill two birds with one stone. You can't search the whole fucking galaxy, but we've got this ocean on our planet that we just do fuck all with except dump Doritos bags and those little 6-pack holders into. And maybe the answer to the cure to cancer, because by the way, we just got video of a giant. We've known giant squid have fucking existed since we've been humans, because these whale carcasses wash up with the tentacles. We just got video of it like a year and a half ago. Explore the fucking oceans, and maybe you tick off both those boxes where we figure out what UAPs are and we cure Parkinson's disease.
Man, I'm all about exploration of any kind, right? Yeah. I think that's helped move us forward. It continues to move us forward. We have to explore. We have to learn. We learn things about ourselves. We learn things about our universe. We learn things about our planet. When we explore, when we push those boundaries, what's going on down the bottom of the ocean? Even our best scientists can only theorize to a certain extent. Think about this. We find species almost every time.
Every week
we drop down there. New species. Right, new creatures.
I tell you what, if you want to learn about something though, Rev, and I know that you're a man that likes to learn and you want to continue to learn, if you want to learn about Days of Thunder, you can go right now to chaddukesshow.com, click on the merch tab. If you buy this t-shirt right here, on the back, you can see it there, Rev. There's a little QR code.
All right.
Guess what that takes you to? A Days of Thunder episode, completely hosted by myself and by the tuber. So don't delay. If you love UAPs, I gotta think you love Michael Rooker and Carrie Elwes and Tom Cruise and Robert Duvall racing around a track. chaddukesshow.com. Click that tab. Those are available now for pre-order, so check that out. How do people figure out where the Reverend Peyton and the Big Damn Band are going to be?
Man, bigdamnband.com, BIGDAMNBAND.com, and I'm on all of the social media, from Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and it's all at Big Damn Band. We're even, what are some of the weird outliers now? Threads. We got Threads now. We got, you name it. We got.
I couldn't get it, but I can't sign up for any more social media.
It's infuriating, brother. It's nonstop. I've been mad about it since MySpace went the way of the dodo. I'm still mad about it.
I love MySpace.
I don't have a personal Facebook page because I'm mad that they shut down the MySpace.
How come I can't have a profile song? How come MySpace was the only ones that could figure that out? That I can get an artist's profile song to represent me.
Let's bring back the top 8. That way people have to fight for it. Fight for your top 8.
Joe Tannehill wouldn't talk to me for a month if he wasn't in my top 8.
Stand up like a king holding court and be like, "Who will be my top 8?"
Well, I think we got to do this again in a couple weeks, brother. We didn't get to half the things I wanted to get to.
There's so much, man. There's so much. And for people that think that this is a distraction, this is what I'd say. I feel like I have to say it. If they think it's a distraction, look at how bipartisan this hearing was. I mean, the videos you showed, we only saw people on the far right speaking. So I mean, this is a very bipartisan issue. When people are so, I guess, blinded by partisanship. They see someone's name like Chuck Schumer or Matt Gaetz, and they go,
fuck it.
Yeah, I'm not going to pay any attention. And instead, you are going to allow these powers that be, this military-industrial complex that presidents and whistleblowers have been screaming about since World War II.
Sure.
To continue to gaslight us and keep this information from us. And the sad part is that when you really get down to it, this is not conspiracy theory, is that in many ways they can do things and our own military at the Pentagon can't do anything about it. And that's frustrating and frightening.
Yeah, and we can argue the next time about what one side will do with that information when it's revealed, but let's get to that finish line first, because I hate to tell you, if you want to go back to talking about science fiction, the way the Federation gets started is that there's first contact, and we all decide that we're one per people on this big blue marble, and it moves us forward. So if that's
I
the
mean,
direction,
at some point, that's got to be that's got to be the goal, right? I mean,
it's the only thing capable of doing it.
There's a ton of people that are like, oh, it's a conspiracy for a one world government, or blah, 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 blah. I'm not big on conspiracy theories, because usually it's Occam's razor, and with Occam's razor, you essentially just follow the money. You don't have to have a one world government. In fact, that's not even smart. You want to really compartmentalize it. That's how the powerful stay powerful. They don't want anybody to have too much more power than they do.
You want crabs in a barrel.
Yeah, you want crabs in a barrel. Exactly. So that's where we're kind of at, with everybody arguing, and politics has become the new religion in this country, and I think it's to our detriment.
All right, Rev, I got to go take a pool bath, so we got to call this. Let's a couple of weeks, seriously. If you're not on the road, let's circle back. And give
Let's
an
do
update
it.
on
Let's
everything.
do it.
Is that
We
cool?
got much to talk about, and I'm guessing that more information is going to come out. I can't wait till this bill passes. I hope that it does, unabated. And it's just so bipartisan. I mean, look at go watch videos of Tim Burchett and Matt Gaetz talk about this, and go watch videos of AOC talk about it.
And go
Harry Reid.
Go read that letter from George Knapp if you're wondering if this is just a American phenomenon. BigDamnBand.com. Rev, thanks so much for joining us on Solid Dudes, brother. You're the absolute best.
Thank you so much, brother. Love talking with you always.
Brand new episode of the Chad Dukes Show tonight. If you'd like to check it out, you can subscribe. Go to chaddukesshow.com, and we will see you next time, Solid Dudes.
Got this beat from DJ Grimy, and you know it's Fuego, dog.